Don't engage alone. We do this together.
Yeah!
Yeah!
We got it! We got
You 52 booklets.
it! Somebody clip this one.
Welcome to Comics League Movie Night. I'm Jared, and today we are talking about the entire Sam Raimi Spider-Man Trilogy. And I'm here with Taladia Plays. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's up, everybody?
And we're here with Nick from the Phoenix Press. What's up, brother?
And they say that a hero
could save us.
save
Yeah,
us.
exactly. And so here's the thing. All right. So this trilogy got a lot of stuff right.
Mm-hmm.
Also got a lot of stuff wrong. So we're going to talk about the good and the bad. So
The
let's
good,
start
the bad, the MJ.
Yes,
exactly.
exactly.
The good, bad, and the downright ugly.
Yeah, that's true. So let's start with the first movie. So what I like about first let's talk about what we like about the first movie. The first movie I like is that first off, the fact that they're doing like CGI Spider-Man, it means that like he can do all the classic Todd McFarlane poses as he's swinging more easily than he could if it's just a dude in ropes. And honestly, CGI kind of holds up pretty well.
You do too much? You're not Superman, you know.
I know, Jesus. You know what's kind of funny is when Aunt May is like struggling with money, and then Peter goes, "Where are all my comic books? Oh, those dreadful things! I threw those away." And I'm like, "You could have sold those."
But Jared, Aunt May isn't like a regular comic book collector.
No, but you would have thought that like maybe that stuff would be expensive. But anyway, but let me start with Nick. So Nick, what does this trilogy mean to you?
It's my childhood, first and foremost. I grew up with this trilogy.
Same here.
Some of my first DVDs were those movies. DVDs are still being sold in stores, so don't start, brother.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's see here. It's like Spider-Man 2 is, in my opinion, one of the greatest superhero movies ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's right up there with like Infinity War, Winter Soldier, Zack Snyder's Justice League,
Superman 1.
Yes, indeed. Like, if there was a Mount Rushmore, it would basically be Superman 1, Spider-Man 2, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and Infinity War.
I like. Yeah, how about you, Claudia?
Spider-Man, the original trilogy, is it is part of my childhood too, right? Because I remember back in the day, I sat down with my uncle in my uncle's house. He put the DVD on, and I watched Bonesaw is ready.
Bonesaw is ready. I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes. They die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
So
on the throat.
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a kid, this was just like one of the utmost greatest movies I ever saw.
Yeah, for me it was like the first like movies that I can remember actually going to go see in the theaters as a kid. And this is again before I really knew anything really about Spider-Man, because I wasn't into comic books like that early. And in terms of like, so I went to go see it, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty much like almost a real like superhero movie, which it kind of is. But it kind of is. I was like, yeah, it kind of is.
Sorry, just the way you worded it was kind of funny.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, and yeah, it's like I mean, growing up, these movies were like some of my most favorite movies, and I used to watch these like all the time. Even in my when I lived in Atlanta, I had like a kick-ass basement viewing room that I would just blast these movies
Ooh.
on. And so and also the other thing we're also going to talk about is the games for these movies, because I played, I think, all three. Yeah, I played all three. But anyway, so going to this. So these are directed by Sam Raimi, and the thing about it is that when you think about the movement that really started to like mainstreamize superhero movies, this and X-Men were really the ones that led the charge into convincing Hollywood that these movies were valid, like, pieces of art, if you will.
Yeah, like I like. There's kind of been a bit of historical revision going on last year. Like they're trying to make Blade. The first, like, Blade was not marketed as a superhero movie; it was marketed as a vampire movie. The first movie that was presented as a comic movie was X-Men. And you had the 1-2 punch of X-Men, then Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. So this came out, and the story was good enough that it convinced people that, okay, making movies about guys in tights that fight crime is actually like good, because the thing about it is that beforehand, again, a lot of these executives didn't see the value in the source material, and even the DC documentary goes into this, and it's like and it's like, because they probably figured that, like, hey, these Superman movies, that was a long time ago. It's a different time. Then when you get to like Spider-Man, because here's the thing, do you notice that the movies that really people identified with were Marvel movies?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
to be fair, DC didn't really have that big of an output during this time. You had Catwoman, and then you had the Nolan trilogy.
Okay.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, but see, yeah, that's true. But correct me if I'm wrong, but like X-Men and Spider-Man, at least Spider-Man 1 came out before Nolan, right?
About
Next-
5 or so years. But the thing is, the DC films before that were Batman and Robin. So like DC, I mean, DC was roaring up the TV. You got the DCAU, you had Smallville. There's a lot of really good DC TV. But Marvel really kind of ruled the box office in the 2000s.
Yeah, and it's because one of the things I always say is that because with Marvel, the reason why they always had an advantage over DC is because, like I said before, DC is like more of the mythological gods amongst men. But Marvel is more on the side of like, these are everyday people that happen to have fantastical powers. And both are valid. It's just, it was easier for people to relate to Marvel because it was Spider-Man. It was just a dude that just got powers from like a science experiment and was trying to balance being a superhero and having a life. With the X-Men, it was more like these people want to just be themselves without being judged, and we could all relate off of that.
Agreed. I would also argue that while it kind of came to bite them in the butt later, selling all the rights to the movies actually really did help get kind of, it was a silver lining kind of thing, because all the movies in the early 2000s really did help to set the stage for the MCU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because otherwise the MCU would have just been Spider-Man, the X-Men, followed by occasional cameos by like the Avengers. But it would have been, but what's interesting about that, and you make a good point, Nick, is that when you go to like, when you go to that time period, selling off the rights to like their most profitable characters forced them to be creative enough with what they had available to them.
Oh no, yeah, they especially when the time of Iron Man came.
Mm-hmm.
You had stuff like Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Daredevil, all these films. Like, people think, oh, comic movies started with Iron Man. No, they didn't. The whole comic movie movement started in 2000. Like, there's a whole 5 or 8 years of comic book movies that helped prime everybody for the MCU.
Yeah, because arguably, I think if Spider-Man and X-Men had not come out, I don't think people would have been as like ravenous on Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, you also had, like I said, movies like Daredevil, Fantastic Four, and a few others. But yeah,
But yeah, and even like the Punisher. But the thing about it is that my mom still didn't know until I told her that Punisher was a Marvel movie.
Really?
Yeah, even though it has like the Marvel logo in the beginning, she probably didn't see it. Hey, what's up, Cameron? But it's like to that point, I don't think Punisher was even marketed as a superhero movie because really, when you think about it, Punisher's not exactly a superhero.
No,
He's more of the "I'm going to murder you" type of hero.
it's a different type of film. I just don't know what to put my finger on it for Punisher.
Yeah, but it's still, my point being, the superhero movies are still coming out, but in the case of like Fantastic Four, well, I still hold out that the Fantastic Four movies of the early 2000s, and Nick, I know you'll agree with this, are supremely underrated. It's just they weren't appreciated at the time that they came out. Neither was Daredevil, particularly before the, well, a little more appreciated when the director's cut came out, but you know what I'm trying to say. So even though superhero movies were coming out, they weren't doing as well as they could. And like X-Men and Spider-Man were like the ones that really like made a lot of money and got the critical reception that these studios wanted. Hey, what's up, Tevia?
Agreed. I would say the other movies did okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, X-Men and Spider-Man were the ones leading the charge. But the other, like, I just don't want to diminish the other movies. Like, I know you seem to want to focus on stuff. That's fine. I just want to make sure the other movies get their just due.
No, they do, but I'm just saying, yeah, they were good, but they didn't do for superhero cinema what X-Men and Spider-Man did.
I think we're arguing semantics. We can just, probably.
Okay, the point is, though, then you get the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies that were like, these. I remember how big these movies were. I started to see Spider-Man merch like outside of places where you would expect to see Spider-Man merch.
Yeah, the first Spider-Man movie especially like broke a frick ton of records. And then Spider-Man 2 came out and it was like, holy crap, this is even better than the first one. And then obviously the games were on fire. Without Spider-Man 2, we wouldn't have had Spider-Man PS4.
Oh yeah, because Spider-Man 2, because a lot of the innovations from that Spider-Man 2 game led to the PS4 games for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So you could say that like you could say that comic book movies would not be what they are today without at least this trilogy, and certainly without X-Men.
Yeah.
They definitely would not. So the first movie, it's pretty much like it's at the time it wasn't, but now going back at it is the generic superhero origin story. We have the whole Uncle Ben dying, and this started the whole we know Spider-Man's origin now. Which go ahead.
One of my favorite tweets ever was like an Uncle Ben role playing account. He said, Please stop rebooting Spider-Man. I'm tired of getting shot.
Yeah, the other funny tweet I saw was like in the Spider-Man games, were like back in like the older Spider-Man games, you didn't have to be near a building to web, and it would look like Spider-Man is like webbing the sky. So someone would go, "Who is holding his web when he's like web swinging in the air?" And then someone goes, "Uncle Ben's ghost."
Wait, what?
Yeah, that was the joke. The movie is segmented why Doc Ock is my favorite Spider-Man villain. Yeah, so with that, this was also like kind of the first where they really tech-ized the villains, because let me put it this way, the Green Goblin in the first movie is not the comic book Green Goblin in terms of looks.
Make my pumpkin buzz grow!
Yeah, exactly. Like, the super soldier thing is more or less true, but the flight suit, yeah, it's not a Power Ranger thing.
Power Rangers? No.
Well, when you
that was a common criticism for the even back then. That was a common criticism.
Yeah, because the suit looked like that. It wasn't like and when you look at like they actually did make like a hood that was more like comic accurate to the thing. It was like an actual prosthetic thing. I guess they wanted to make this go as grounded as possible so that it'd be easier for people to like latch on to it. And
I'm really glad for No Way Home.
Yeah,
they got rid of the mask to allow William Dafoe to use his facial expressions. Like, I think he's a lot more scarier when you can actually see his face, and allow William Dafoe to make the way William Dafoe can contort his face is honestly frightening sometimes.
Norman's got on sabbatical.
Oh
Debbie
God, I
says,
love that.
Debbie says, I think Ultimate Spider-Man comics borrowed from the Ultimate Spider-Man 100% borrowed from the first movie, like bar none, because it's pretty much because a lot of it, particularly that first volume, is the first movie. Particularly the whole genetically altered spiders, because remember, previous to the original origin for Spider-Man was like an irradiated spider with like radiation. With this one, It's like, no, we were trying to make a super spider.
I'm kind of curious now. Like, when did Ultimate Spider-Man come out?
Yeah, let me see.
2000. I would say 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to find the actual date.
Ultimate Spider-Man comics was the first issue came out September of 2000.
Okay, so the first movie came out in 2002. So yeah, Jared, I'll give it to you. There is a very real possibility that the comics did influence this movie.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so and that's actually really funny when you think about it, because since a Spider-Man, and even especially X-Men too, when you look at it, the Ultimate line of comics were like very influential in the movies still, even before the MCU happened.
I mean, heck, I think the X-Men movies definitely impacted the Ultimate comics.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously when we get to the MCU, the Ultimates is pretty much the Avengers.
You think this stands for France?
I love where Mark Millar actually got pushback from that, and so did Brian Hitch. And Brian Hitch is like, I just drew what he told me to do. But Cameron says they did because, if I recall correctly, in one of the issues, Peter was swinging by. Because in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, there was an arc where they're making a Spider-Man movie starring Tobey Maguire.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and what's kind of funny is he shows up, he tries to like disrupt the site by like showing up and like causing a disturbance, but they actually film him, so he becomes like part of the movie. It's a Parker luck.
Well, the movie just saved a crap ton of money on CGI, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But particularly back then with that relatively crappy level of CGI. So that would have been very funny. So now, which one of these movies is your least favorite? I know if I ask what's your favorite, chances are we'll say Spider-Man 2, but let's go with least favorite. I'm going to say 3 because I think it crammed in way too much stuff.
3 as well. I will say I've always maintained there's a good movie buried in that movie. Also, this is Anakin Spider-Man 3 is Anakin Skywalker's least favorite movie.
Oh, really? That's Hayden's least favorite?
Yeah, because there's so much sand.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But it was kind of funny with the movie is that originally it was just supposed to be Sandman, but according to Sam Raimi, they wanted Venom in the movie because Venom was like achieving a new like renaissance, if you will, at the time. So they were like, put him in the movie. But the funny part is that the version of Venom they put in that movie is not Venom at all.
Well, that's not actually the story. Originally,
okay, go ahead.
They wanted Sandman and the Vulture to be in the movie. Okay. They were going to cast they had already cast Ben Kingsley as the Vulture.
He would have been a good Vulture.
Yes, and then Avi Arad, if there is a villain of comic book movies, it is Avi Arad. Mm-hmm. He had been wanting Venom in it because Avi Arad only thinks in toys.
Because he was a toy biz guy, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, Avi Arad is in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics.
Oh, lovely! And they did force Venom into it, and because Sam Raimi has always been a Silver Age, Bronze Age Spider-Man fan, think 60s and 70s. So that's his era of Spider-Man, and that's what he wanted to do. and you could tell his heart was not in Venom.
Yeah, exactly. You could tell he definitely did not understand the character. What does it say that the Venom movies got more close to the comic Venom than Spider-Man? It didn't even have Spider-Man in them. By the way, so now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the Mary Jane size elephant in the room. I don't think it gets
Be
until
careful, Tiger.
Yeah, I don't. I think she's fine in 1. I think it's 2 and 3 that she starts to be very toxic.
I disagree. I think even in 1, she was exhibiting a lot of traits. Playing people off each other. She was kind of playing Harry and Peter off against each other. She only really starts to show an interest in Peter when he gets on better in life. I don't know.
You could kind of go with that. You can kind of go with that. How about you, Taladia? What do you think of MJ in this trilogy? And Taladia's not here. So anyway, continuing on. But for me, it's like so yeah, let's talk about that, because the thing about it is, like, I think the way I think of MJ in this is that she's kind of like the Batman voice in Christopher Nolan's movies. It starts off okay, but then gets progressively worse as the movies go on.
Where is she?
Where's MJ? Where's Paul? Hold on. Venom wasn't Silver or Bronze Age? No, he was Modern Age. By modern, it's like 80s and on.
Yeah, Silver is the 60s, Bronze is the 70s, Modern is 80s and up, and we really need to redo the age thing, because we really need to have new stuff.
Yeah, we need another. I think it's about time we add another age for what we're in, because things have changed a lot.
At least 3 or 4, because the 80s is very different from the 90s, 2000s. I would say the modern era is 2009 onwards.
Tevio, there was no dark age. I don't know where he's getting that from. As someone who grew up with friends who were MJ fans, they were not happy with her portrayal. It didn't help that my Gwen Stacy fans kept antagonizing them. Yeah, see, Gwen Stacy was better in this movie. So was Ursula, as far as I know, OC in the movie.
Yeah, they did kind of combine MJ and Gwen a lot for the character, but just didn't work. Yeah, Ursula is the GOAT, and Gwen is they did a good version of Gwen.
And at least Peter, as opposed to this, here's why this Peter may be better than the movie than the comics. At least he could catch a Gwen.
Yeah, and after that, she was like, "I'm gonna go work for InGen."
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, cinematic universe.
So you could say that she entered the witness protection program after that?
Or I mean, I don't know.
That's the best way. Anyway, and yes, Sam Reimi Spider-Man Trilogy was the best out of it. See, here's the thing, though. I think, okay, so it's the best 2.5 movies, is what I'll say, because 1 and 2 are good, 2 being the best. 3, yeah, it's there was too much. You see, I do agree with you, Nick. There is some good in 3. That 3 is an enjoyable movie at least for me, up until the point where we get to the black suit, because then we get emo Spider-Man and all the memes that were made of emo Spider-Man.
Okay, I'm gonna say, I feel like emo Spider-Man is one of the great 2000s memes. Bully Maguire, it's right up there with prequel memes, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
Exactly, and ambiguous gender says I love 3 for the meme. Same with Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, exactly. Cameron says, by the way, I don't know if this is true, but apparently, Punisher was in 2.
Yeah, he was.
Thomas Jane Punisher was in 2.
So, at one point, Wolverine was supposed to make a cameo in the movies, but they forgot his suit.
You could just have him in the shirt and jeans.
They misplaced his suit, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know. I'm not, but I don't accept that as the excuse because Wolverine's uniform most of the time in those movies was a like tank top and jeans.
Yeah.
That's what it was. You can't. You tell me you misplaced his suit. I think that is, Nick. I think that's Studio 4. We didn't want to spend the money,
or we didn't want to do it, but we already kind of, whatever. Let's make an excuse.
Yeah.
Imagine if the 2003 Daredevil had made a cameo to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Not a movie, Cameron, but it's a blink and you miss it moment. Describe it.
So at the end of the movie,
And this is two.
MJ and end of 2, MJ becomes a runaway bride, and there's a scene of her running through, I think, Central Park or something. And as she's running, there's kind of a blink and you miss it scene of Thomas Jane looking back. It's very clearly that actor.
Yeah, he turns around too. So that's the thing.
I think he's even wearing the Punisher t-shirt. I can't remember.
He might. I don't think so. I know he's wearing all black, but it's like turning around. I'm not sure if he's in the.
Let me look up a picture.
Yeah, it's a good idea because he turns. From what I remember, the coat is covering the t-shirt because he is in the trench coat. But anyway, so
all right, yep, I got the picture.
Yeah, go ahead and
I'm gonna send you on Twitter.
Screen. Okay,
I'll send you on Twitter. It's very clearly the actor. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, saving.
Okay, but anyway, so then we also get because a lot of these and Cameron brought up a good point earlier. It's like a lot of the okay, here we go. Yeah, it's clearly Thomas Jane, but the t-shirt is obscured. I mean, you can kind of see a little bit of white, but yeah, I'll share screen. So she's running through Central Park, and there's Thomas Jane right here. He just turns and looks.
Yeah, that's very clearly the actor.
And I think he's even credited on IMDb. Let me see, IMDb Spider-Man 2. Let me see, because I want to see if this is actually like if he's actually credited, even though it could be like he goes uncredited or something like that.
Speaking of Punisher, did you ever see the short Dirty Laundry?
No, I didn't. I wanted to. Now we got.
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. Watch it whenever you want.
Mm-hmm. I'll check that out. But so now the other thing that's kind of funny is that when the gun suit came out for Superman, people were like, "Oh, wait until they do VFX to like clean it up." And then what's kind of funny is that a Snyder account shared all the times that you had suits that didn't need to be CGI'd up in order to like fit the actor. You had like Henry Cavill Superman, Batman, and then you also had the Sam Raimi Spider-Man suit because
literally every other suit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the problem with a lot of Hollywood today is that they're becoming too reliant on CGI to fix all their mistakes.
The only time that argument was valid was the Sasha Kali suit, but that was more color correction than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like it looked good once they got the color correction in, and that I can actually excuse because movies are made with color correction in mind. So a suit looking weird without color correction, I can actually give them a pass for.
Yeah, I mean, and look, when we saw the Superman suit in the open and not in that crappy picture, in terms of coloring, it looked better. It still didn't look as good as it could have, but it looked a little bit better. But anyway, in terms of fit, you didn't have to like make it fit well in CGI.
They're gonna digitally erase the scrunches.
Yeah, but the problem is they're gonna have to do that every time he moves.
That's gonna be expensive.
Yeah, where when you get this Spider-Man suit, yeah, first off, yes, there are some scenes where he's like CGI'd, but a lot of it looks skin tight. Like that is the unbelievable thing about this movie is that first off, some of the CGI is noticeable. I'm not going to say it's like the best CGI ever, but what I will say, what I noticed when we're covering a lot of like older superhero movies, they use CGI so sparingly that sometimes you don't even notice it's CGI, whereas opposed to a lot of the movies that come out now are like CGI fest, so you're like, okay, all of this is probably in a green screen.
Yeah, also, a lot of these movies use physical stuff. Like, there's actually Spider-Man swinging through areas for close-ups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's why, like, the CGI in these three movies stands up better than movies like The Flash.
Yeah.
Like, well, even on that, look at the first Iron Man.
To be fair, The Flash used PS2 to render it CGI, so let's cut it some slack.
Yeah, and then when you look at, like, let's say this, or like even in Zack Snyder's Justice League, they use an Xbox Series X cranked up to 20. That's how you get that to look good.
No. Zack Snyder at the time was using an RTX 3090 Titan Snyder Series video card made specifically for him from NVIDIA.
Yeah, exactly. But that's my point. It's like when you look at that's why I think movies like Iron Man, even a lot of the X-Men CGI holds up ridiculously well. It's like it looks. I mean, yeah, there are some shots that don't look as well, particularly in this. There are some shots of like Spider-Man swinging where it does look like he's a CGI character, but a lot of them you don't notice.
Yeah, I mean the thing with Iron Man is they work with Stan Winston Studios. I mean, this is people who brought like Terminator, Jurassic Park, like they were like the best in the biz and legendary. You know, that was one of the last films Stan Winston worked on was Iron Man.
Yeah. So transitioning to another way of talking about these movies, which one is your favorite villain?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd probably say Doc Ock, but there's a lot
Power
of them.
of the sun in the palm of my hand.
I will say, as much as I dog the Homecoming trilogy, I really like Vulture. And that because he feels like a Raimi villain. Because the thing about the Raimi villains was relatability.
Yeah.
Like, you could always tell, like, okay, this is why they're doing it. They had great motivations. And you cared about him. And that's what I loved about the Vulture in Homecoming was he was just a guy trying to provide for his family.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, or even, yeah, so going to, like, the Raimi Spider-Man 2, when you look at Doc Ock, he was just trying to, like, advance science.
Yeah. Or Norman Osborn, you know? Like, sure, pride was his fall, but it kind of, like, it came from a good place. Like,
yeah.
He was prideful of his work, but he was, honestly, Norman was kind of a decent guy. Look at the before stuff. Like, he just wanted his son to have a good life, and sure, it was kind of planned out, but like, look at the way he treated Peter. Like, I don't know.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
I love that line.
Yeah, yes, it's very like fanboy-ish, but I liked it in No Way Home when they homage that. I'm like, okay, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say the callback when he was holding the arc reactor and he said the power of the sun, like that actually fit in my opinion. That actually worked.
And then Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man shows up, and then they have that reunion with the that's the other thing I love about the three Raimi the Raimi trilogy movies. The soundtrack is superb. Like superb.
Yeah, like the way they treated Doc Ock in No Way Home was great.
I also like, Nick, if you notice, when we get to Spider-Man 2, hey, what's up, Throth? The The recap in the beginning of the movie is drawn by Alex Ross.
Oh, yep. I remember seeing that in theaters, and I called that right away.
I was like, oh, okay. After I got really into comics and I watched that, I was like, oh, okay, it's Alex Ross. I see what they're doing there. That's
Not
nice.
only that,
Well
but
done.
it's Alex Ross watercolors. Like, these aren't just regular Alex Ross art. He actually did watercolors for this, which he doesn't do very often.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but these were also my first Stan Lee cameos.
Oh, nice.
When I first, yeah, go ahead.
Mine were in X-Men. See, tradition didn't start with the MCU.
No.
Actually, his first cameo was in Trial of the Incredible Hulk back in the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. And it was kind of funny. Well, actually, you know what? My first was the first one when I noticed something was it wasn't necessarily in Spider-Man. It was in Fantastic Four at Sue and Reed's wedding, where they do the whole Stan Lee shows up at the wedding.
Okay, that's probably my favorite Stan Lee cameo. This is going to be blasphemous, Jared, but you want to know what my second favorite is?
You blasphemous? No.
My second favorite Stan Lee cameo is in Captain Marvel. It's they're on the bus. It's set in the 90s, and he's reading the script for Mallrats. The
oh yeah, because he was in Mallrats.
That is actually Stan Lee. It's actually Stan Lee, and then also at that time he was a Watcher informant. So he sees Captain America, and then she smiles back at him like she knows he's a Watcher informant. Like I don't know. It's like it's just kind of sweet. Like that cameo just kind of hits the feels.
Plus, wasn't that also the movie where like the like MCU the Marvel Studios like introduction was like all Stan Lee clips?
I don't remember, but
because I think he had just died right before that movie came out.
Yeah, and he had a couple cameos left. I think his last one was Infinity War. I can't believe he made a cameo in Teen Titans Go to the Movies. We got to talk about that movie sometime.
By the way, his last one was actually Endgame, because when they go back to the base where Steve Rogers was made to get the pin particles, he's a hippie driving by the base and goes, "Hey, you, make peace, not war."
Yeah, they actually de-aged him to like, it was 70s Stan Lee. I loved it.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. But so let me bring up this. So now let's talk about the games, because particularly Spider-Man 2 essentially paved the way for the swinging it's feeling so smooth as it does in the Spider-Man games now. Before
we touch upon that, I briefly want to talk about the first Spider-Man movie game, which I played a lot of that. It's essentially a clone of the PS1. You're playing the PS1 Spider-Man games, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Enter Electro, made by Insomniac. They were pretty good. And they pretty much took like the whole formula of that game and applied it to Spider-Man 1, and it was pretty good. One of the most hilarious, controversial things is you can get costumes, and one of them is MJ. You can play as MJ in the game in her Chinese dress.
Oh God! So that's where the Mary Jane mission started.
Oh no, you haven't. The most unintentionally hilarious thing is, at the end of the game, you kiss MJ. So if you play as the MJ skin, at the end of the game, you have an MJ on MJ kiss.
Oh God.
They actually had to censor it in like the Middle Eastern countries because of that.
The hilarious part is that people have modded Spider-Man PS4, so you play as Gwen, and all that stuff happens. Yeah, but I mean Spider-Gwen, and they actually have like a female voice. They used AI to make the female voice, and then they also have a female Peter model as well.
Oh God.
Yeah, but modders are crazy. But yeah, that Spider-Man 2 game was like, because previously with web swinging, I think it was just you hit a button and then steer him pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. In that first game, it was pretty awkward.
But in this game, that's more of the you pull the trigger, he throws the web. You release the trigger, he releases the web. So it's more like you feel a little more connected to the swinging.
Yeah, the whole momentum-based swinging really did start with Spider-Man 2.
And then you also get into that's also where like the requirement that you had to be like near a building in order to swing work, because even in Spider-Man 1, you could swing in midair essentially.
Yeah.
Which was very weird. All right, so I first played the first Spider-Man game. So Blockbuster used to have these little game consoles like set up where you could essentially play games and stuff. That's where I first played it. And I remember I was like, well, this game seems fun. And then when I got my Xbox, I actually got Spider-Man 2. But the thing about it is that my save kept getting corrupted after the Rhino fight. Now, when we get to Spider-Man 3, now that would be okay. The cutscenes in that, the graphics were awful.
I mean, also, isn't that the game where it had the quick time events, and when he failed them, they were actually kind of funny?
Yeah, that's the start of the humorous quick time events. But it's also the fun part about this game is that if you downloaded a free DLC, you could play as Harry Osborn, the new Goblin, and just fly around.
Oh, they did something like that in Spider-Man 1, where it actually was Harry Osborn, but it was just like the Goblin model.
Yeah,
it was kind of like a New Game Plus kind of mode. It's like an alternate scenario.
Yeah, essentially you could do that. And then later on, if you complete the game, you could switch among all the 3 suits. The thing about me, and you could play the missions in any order. So I completed all the movie stuff like first, and then all I had is a bunch of side missions. I think the last time I played it, I had the Craven mission where you fight him and Kurt Connors. Because Connors actually becomes the Lizard in this.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because did you ever play Ultimate Spider-Man during that time?
I saw it. I never played it.
I thought it was really, because the graphics look really interesting. And it's essentially the same mechanic as Spider-Man 2, and they even added Queens.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Taladi, you're still out there? Okay, so I'll remove him. But anyway.
He probably fell asleep or something.
It's all good. But yeah, so anyway, but yeah, it's essentially that. Isn't Ultimate Spider-Man the one where you could also play as Eddie Brock?
Yeah, and you can actually eat people's heads.
Yeah, that's good. Brown Destroyer says, isn't this it's not the first time when comic book movies first started showing glimpses of Marvel Comics when they were the logo. I want to say
it might have come a little bit later, but yeah.
I remember one of them. I think it was Spider-Man 2 was the one that started that. I want to say, because I remember I saw it with Spider-Man, with one of the Spider-Man movies. It was either 2 or 3, I think, is when they first did that. But yeah, so it's essentially with the Spider-Man movies that at least I remember first seeing that. And I always thought that was really cool. But yeah, and then Spider-Man 3, that was also the first Spider-Man game that I played, because I played 3 and then 2, where I could just free roam and just hang out. Like I would go into I would constantly like hop a ride on the subway and just ride the subway. And the funny part is that the subway would not stop at any station, so it just kept going throughout the entire New York area. And you could actually have Spider-Man be hit by the subway train. And he's fine. My favorite
it totally worked last time.
Yeah, my favorite is that, yeah, exactly. When you play the Sandman fight, you can actually cheese grate Sandman's face onto the subway train.
Yeah, it's like, all right, this was an iconic move from the movie. We have to recreate it in the game.
Yeah, you can't not do that. And I forget, so the other thing that's but the problem with the game for me is that the cutscene graphics, particularly for a game that came out around that time, because there were some games around that time that had great, way better looking cutscenes. And I was like, the hell is this?
I mean, if you want to talk about Spider-Man games of the era, there's one that I think this is your opportunity to talk about Web of Shadows.
Yes! My favorite Spider-Man game of all time, of the ones that I've played. Well, I played PS4 on PlayStation. On Xbox. God, on PC. But yeah, that was my Spider-Man game for a while. Because here's the fun part about that: they brought in the entire Marvel universe. Like you could fight Wolverine, and the cool part is that to prove that you were Spider-Man and not just a symbiote, Wolverine would ask you Spider-Man trilogy trivia. It was really cool. And then you get to fight a venomized Wolverine.
And then you also had, like, it was kind of like a, choose the light path or the dark path. And you had, like, the evil ending. And you had Black Cat, voiced by Trisha Helfer. Ooh, meow.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the way.
No, Trisha Helfer, that's from Battlestar.
Oh, okay, yeah. So other person, she played Dare in ODST, but I would always spam. It's kind of funny whenever I did the boss battles, I would just spam the move where Spider-Man like pulls toward an enemy by a web and then jumps off their head and like does damage. I would just spam that move whenever there was a boss battle.
This is Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Because the fun part about that game is that was the first Spider-Man game I played where you could actually do like mid-air combat. I know 3, they kind of did that, but I feel like Web of Shadows is the one where they got it, like, where they refined it really well.
Yeah.
And then obviously with the black suit, the cool part about the black suit is that not only is there like a black suit ending, it also determined who becomes your ally. Like if you went black suit, you get Black Cat. If you went red suit, you would get Moon Knight. And then you could call in Moon Knight to help you out in his little moon wing. They didn't finish the graphics in the game, did they? No, not Spider-Man 3. And then that was also the first time I heard Moonlight Sonata because they literally start the game with that song.
Ah, nice.
I was like, yeah, that works. But let's see, what's the other Spider? Did you ever play Spider-Man Friend or Foe?
No, that was kind of the kiddie game.
I played that. That was actually my first exposure to the character Blade.
Did you ever play? There's 2 other games they made in between the Raimi and the Amazing Trilogy. There's Shattered Dimensions and End of Time. You ever play those?
I never played those. I want to, but I never got to play those. There's a rumor that they're gonna bring back the Spider-Man games onto Game Pass.
Actually, that's pretty possible because those games were made by Activision, and Microsoft owns Activision. So one of the big hoops is, well, we already own Activision, so we got that part of the license.
Yeah, it's that game, Ultimate Alliance, and X-Men Origins are the games that they're gonna put on Game Pass soon. Which I'm like, well, yes, I will download those games now.
Well, probably what they're going to do is the Xbox 360 versions of those games, obviously, which they already have the infrastructure for. So it's, from a technical standpoint, it is extremely doable.
The other game that they're going to put on the Game Pass is Deadpool, which is good because I've never played the Deadpool game.
Oh, God. I'm surprised they didn't do like a remastered version of that Deadpool game for Deadpool.
They did when the movie came out, but then they lost the license, I think.
That's weird.
I think in terms of rights or something like that, it fell apart when the movie came out. I actually liked MJ in the movies. Oh boy, not so much in the comics. I always thought that MJ and Spider-Man aren't made for each other. Why, Brown? Why?
Okay, I'm just gonna say this: MJ and Peter in the movies are not made for each other. I will die on that hill.
Mm-hmm.
In the movies.
Yeah, I don't like MJ in the movies at all. I really don't.
Yeah, I will die on that hill with fiery passion. Comics, they're made for each other. Movies, no.
Yeah. So did you see the Spider-Man editor was trying to like provoke the fan base? You know what he tweets out?
So it's a day that ends in Y, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but you know what Nick Lowe tweeted out? All right. This is what this D-bag tweets out. All right, hang on. I'll pull it up because it was in a different thing. So In a time when he's already like, when the what's the word? In a time when he's already on thin ice because of like the New York Comic-Con thing.
I was about to say he's probably still salty about Comic-Con. How dare you, plebs, call me out, the editor of Spider-Man? I'm better than you.
So what he said is, all right. So let me see. So he was talking about the current Joe Kelly book, but then he says, and sorry to disappoint all the Paul fans out there. Ran out of room to include the best new character in comics. Maybe later. Keep reading, Chew Paul Evers.
What the frick?
Yeah, I know. And I'm like, how tone deaf could you get?
Very, it seems.
And it's so, yeah, everyone's screenshotting it. Everyone's like, yeah, it's really like, I'm like, I think what my friend Robert said is that he thinks that Paul, yeah, might as well, that Nick Lowe is on his way out, and that's like a final FU to the fans. I'm like, that's the right attitude to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's going to be able to get any work after this, and he probably knows it. So it's like, you know what? I'm just going to say all the things I wanted to say. What are we going to do? Fire me?
Yeah, and I don't like how he co-ops the Stan Lee thing.
What does he say, Excelsior?
No, he says he basically calls everyone Paul Evers, like how like a true Paul Evers, like Stan Lee used to call everyone true believers. And I'm like, you are not Stan Lee, dude. If anything, you're the complete opposite of Stan Lee. But anyway, and then Tevye says, actually, in the 80s, Peter and MJ got married. Yeah, exactly. So Nick Lowe is going to burn every bridge until he has nothing left. Unfortunately, this is what I tell people. When Nick Lowe leaves the book, and yes, I say when because he's going to leave, it's not like they're going to put Peter and MJ back together because there's enough, because Brevoort has put enough of his own, of people that think like him in editorial positions throughout Marvel. So it's like it's like Hydra. Cut off one head, two more take its place. So for the moment, Peter and MJ aren't going to be together unless Ultimate Spider-Man keeps selling to the point where Disney actually takes an interest and says, "Do this. This is working."
I mean, it's selling well. It's going to make an impact. I think that's probably why Nick Lowe is on his way out. I'm sure Comic-Con didn't help.
Well, yeah, and Nick Lowe was also openly mocking Ultimate Spider-Man when it was being released because he said, if you want Peter and MJ back together, go read Ultimate Spider-Man. And the fan base was like, okay.
See, here's the thing that I think corporations are starting to catch on to this fact. We are exiting the era where you could openly mock your fans, openly antagonize them, openly insult them, deny them what they want for years and stuff would still sell. We are entering an era where you got to please your fans. Like, you've got to give them what they want because sales are dropping, and the only way to actually get them back is actually give them what they want. And I think corporations are starting to realize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Particularly like now, because I think the pandemic is what really shook these companies. Because now all of a sudden they're like, okay, the money may not always keep flowing, so we're gonna need.
For a lot of these companies, the pandemic was the good times. And the problem is a lot of these companies thought, oh, this will just last forever, and it didn't.
Yeah, all right. Cameron brings up a good point. Go read another book if you want to read the book you want. If you don't like my politics, don't buy my book.
I was literally just about to say that.
Yeah, it was kind of funny, Nick. They just announced the Aquaman book is coming back. So Aquaman has not had a book since Kelly Sue DeConnick was on it. That's how long. Even when there was a movie. I mean, they did a tie-in comic, but no, it was the movie came out. There was not a single main continuity Aquaman book, and I'm like, how does this happen? He's a Justice Leaguer. Every Justice Leaguer should have a book, but now. That's just DC and Marvel being idiots. But anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it. So, Nick, where can we find you and what have you got coming out on your channel?
All right. Well, in a little over an hour, I'll be playing some Dragon Quest III remake, the 2D HD version. I played a little bit of it when it was released, and it's pretty good. Yeah, Jared's not going to be there. It's not really his cup of tea. It's a bit of a weeb game.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then on Monday on Comics Watch, we'll be talking about our love for Spider-Man, why he's awesome. And,
and by the way, since you said weeb.
Oh, God.
There you go. So as for Comics League, at 9 o'clock, Britt and I will be going live to talk about like the similarities between the relationship of Black Panther and Storm and Superman and Wonder Woman. Obviously, tomorrow, Nick and I are doing Superman Rewatch. I'll be on Comics Watch. And then in terms of like the other content, in terms of Under Two Capes and like movie night next week, I'll update you guys when we have a plan. But anyway, stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lame. She belongs with General Zod, Zoas, and Maxabat for life. We will see you later.